Constantine, a Hellblazer podcast.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Hell Talk. As always, I'm here with Hoku.
Howdy. How's it going?
Going good. I was very interested to talk about this chunk of issues this time because this is like the meat, like the well, I said last time was the meat, but this is like the fallout, like what happens after the last stuff. So it's like this is like the you don't get to see John in this position very often, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about this stuff. So I'm glad we finally got here. It's what issue or this is like episode number 7 or something of this, so it's getting
I have no idea.
getting up there. I'm pretty sure it's 7, but yeah, this one, like, overall there's a lot of ups and downs. Like, what'd you think of the way that this chunk kind of progressed?
Well, it's so funny because it felt almost like a behind the scenes look at John's life, where normally you see him winning, you see him like getting shit done, you see him getting the girl, you see him like beating the bad guys. And this was just like, hey, his life turned to shit. And here he is, living on the streets, like drinking below bottom shelf booze, if he can even get that. And I thought it was such an intriguing way to just completely flip his life around and show that, hey, you know what? Even though he is like the Magus, he is the boss, even he can fall. And even he can like hit, I mean, what you hope is the bottom. Because I swear, if there's anything further that he can fall, I don't know how much worse his life could get, but, you know.
Yeah, for real. This is like yeah. I haven't read all of Hellblazer, or at least the first run, but I don't think he ever gets this low again. I can't think of a time when he does. He does go to prison, I know, later on, so maybe.
Oh, dang.
I don't remember him being super low in that, but he does go to a prison in America, so it's an American prison. So that's
Oh, yeah, that
interesting
kind
part.
of sucks.
Yeah,
That could be bad.
I don't know. I don't know what the difference is between British and American prisons, so maybe they're not that different. But let's see. I've seen Bronson, and I've seen a lot of other American movies that have prisons, so they're similar, I think. But yeah, I thought like these issues, and we didn't say what they are yet, but we're covering in this arc or in this little chunk for this episode. We're doing issues 68 through, I believe it is 77. Yeah, it's 77. And so this is kind of like, if you don't remember what happened last time, Constantine has lost his love, his girlfriend that he's had for the last couple, a year or so, maybe last year's.
He really did get dirty.
Yeah. And she broke up with him, and then his best mate Chaz left him, and so John is.
He
on
also
his own.
did Chaz dirty. I mean, we can just agree that he was in the wrong this time, like for sure. Like,
oh yeah,
obviously.
I think, and also like he's always in the wrong with Chaz. Like with Chaz, he literally treats him like shit,
true.
And he's like, "Hey, can you give me a ride?" Like,
and never pays him because he owes him. Which, I mean, yes, but at the same time, you could, it's his livelihood. You could give him something and not insult him all the time.
Yeah, the insulting too, So, yeah, this one I was like, okay, I'm excited to talk to you, not only because of like the roller coaster that it is, but also because I know you're a big fan of vampire stuff.
Oh yeah,
and vampires are in this one. In fact, the king of the vampires returns in issue.
He came back! Yay! It wasn't just a one-off. I'm so happy. And then also like, wait, that's it?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, so when I first read this arc, I was like, oh shit, King of the Vampires, John's at his lowest. It's gonna be like this big epic thing that turns him around, and it's like 2 issues, and he handles it pretty well, even as Hobo John. So
did he handle it really, or did he just sort of be like, all right, take me, I'm done. And then, just accepted his fate. And then it just happened to turn out better for him. Like, like he really didn't do anything.
That's true. It's so he handles it after that was revealed.
Yeah, to save himself or like to fight back. He was literally just like, all right, obviously you caught me at the worst possible time. Just do it. Just do it. Just kill me. I don't care.
He was ready to die. But I think it's funny, like the little spark you see when the demon blood starts killing the king of the vampires because he drank from John. And you just see that flash of old John in this like depressed John's eyes all of a sudden, and he's like, "Ha ha!" Like, like that's right, you motherfucker! Like like you get the light a little bit in him from this scene, like from just the irony of you bit me, and like you didn't know I had demon blood, did you, you son of a bitch? So, so like,
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
yeah, I thought that was and I'm glad they kind of use it because it doesn't come up that often that he has demon blood. So
I forgot about it, honestly.
yeah, yeah, and I know like I think the run after this, the Paul Jenkins run, I think all of that gets cleansed anyway. So after that point, it's not a thing.
Um,
So like this is the first couple runs, like the Delano and this run with Ennis are the only runs that like can use that technically. Um, I think so. I'm glad that they brought it up again as like a sticking point.
let's hope he doesn't run into more vampires because he can't use that trick again.
Yeah, I think well, if he's not all down and out, I think it'll be like when he first met the king, where he's like, "You can go fuck yourself." Like, he's not scared anyway. So, but did you think that it was over too quickly? Like, would you like to have seen like a 6-issue arc of this whole thing, or did you think it was good like length?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard because it's not like I'm jonesing for another Fear Machine. I'm not like, oh, you know what I could really use? A nice long arc that just, stretches out a storyline. I loved these short, sort of like, half arcs. It kind of felt like, just 2 issues, 3 issues, just like these, like, and then with the singles in between, it was nice. It was cool. It, I would only say that because it was a vampire character and because it was such a grand entrance for him and, such a description of, I mean, the irony is what got me.
He's the king of the vampires. Like they do a whole issue dedicated to how old
Yeah.
and awesome he is.
The irony of this guy who's just like, I killed the first human and I'm going to be here when the earth dies, when every human's gone. Like, I'm going to rock across the universe somehow and just go on killing for all eternity. And then he fucking dies. And I was like, so there is sort of like just a feeling of, wait, that's it. That's how this guy goes out. I was like, wow, that was way easier than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I was like, it's only 2 issues.
But at the same time, the fact that someone like the King of the Vampires could be bested by John at his fucking lowest without John even like thinking of like luring him in like that. Like he was just, just kill me, get it over with. He wasn't even like, oh, but if he does, dot dot dot, I could get the upper hand. It wasn't even any of that. It was like no planning, no back thought of like, I'm crossing my fingers because I'm not actually wanting to die. It was just one of those like random circumstances that happened, and for someone as supposedly boss as the King of the Vampires to go out like that is kind of funny, and you can't do that very often in comics where you bring in a character this big and then just kill him off like that. So I do applaud them for making that choice to just be like, here's this awesome character and he's dead.
Yeah, it was surprising. It was, it's kind of I kind of find it a better way now, especially to do this because we have similar things. I want to call it the Joss Whedon effect, where like in Buffy or whatever, there's like a big bad that you think they're building up, and then it ends up, oh no, it was like really easy. It was only one episode. We thought this was going to be the new big bad, but it's like they do a joke. Turns out it was like he can get killed by water or something, and then like, and then it's like, oh, no big deal. And I think Joss Whedon made that first, and it was kind of unique when he did it originally. But since then, a lot of writers and movies and stuff use that as like a trope now, where it's like, oh, this big bad and then nothing, but it's kind of silly. It's like they make the villain laughable.
Yeah.
In this, I feel like they didn't make him laughable. It was just literally like it just happened. John had demon blood, and then that's all it was. Like it wasn't like a witty, clever thing. Now I do agree. Like once John sees that this happened, he thinks it's hilarious, and he like pisses on him and stuff. Like he kind of makes it funny after the fact, but
Yeah, that's true.
but it wasn't like it didn't seem like it was meant to be this like what if we do this and it's going to be so clever. It was just kind of like oh this would be sick and it makes sense in the universe, like
Hmm.
yeah, I just think it didn't have like the cutesy attitude towards it, which is like now kind of how it's done a lot, overused, I think. So this was kind of like it had a different tone or feel than the usual, like, oh, we beat the bad guy in 5 seconds and we thought they were going to be something big. That's new. And also I kind of think it like comes out of the last arc with the Nazi guy, where you think he's gonna like it's gonna build up to something where John's kind of fighting this group of Nazis in the government or whatever, and then it ends up he gets shot and killed by George. I think it was, I can't remember, Charlie, I think the guy's name was, that gets killed, and so like that was kind of almost a build up too, but it's not the King of the Vampires, so that's like I like the way that he does it in this. It is surprising, and I didn't see it coming. But it also makes sense in world, and like I said, it doesn't change the attitude of John for long. He still immediately goes back to being depressed, but I love that spark of like, haha, you motherfucker, like when John realizes what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then off of that, like 2-issue little arc, we have the Vertigo Jam issue, which was just kind of like a random story that I found, but it's set in this time period of John being homeless, which I thought was cool and unique. It kind of adds another little story in between as well to kind of add to, yeah, John's still homeless, because quickly after this, he's not homeless anymore. So um so I think that this kind of gave a little bit more, or added a little bit more to John's depression, and like that time period for him. What did you think of this Vertigo Jam issue?
I thought it was cool. I would love to read the other stories, even if I have no context for what they are. I think it'd be a cool issue to get, because it's almost like when they used to have like sample comics that would have a little bit from different issues of different comics, like actual comics. And it would almost be like a little story, or I don't know, it wasn't so much a separate story as it was like a piece of an actual story. And it was like, oh, if you want to see how this ends, check out this issue. And so I forget what those were called, but they used to put out those like compilations. But I like that this one had like full, technically separate, technically still in world stories. I'm assuming the others were like that too. Yeah, but this one was actually, it was like really cool.
Yeah, I know the Swamp Thing is. I don't know about the other ones. I didn't read, like there's a Sandman one.
Oh, I want to read that one. I would love to know what part, like where it is, where it falls in the story.
Yeah, I want to say these are from like 95 or 6, so kind of probably towards the end of the Sandman run, I think. Um, but yeah, like I thought this was like an interesting look into John's past that we haven't seen before. Like, or we have a little bit. We've got glimpses of how much of like a womanizer John used to be. Like when he was just starting magic, like with the whole Astra thing. Um, he's using I think her name's Judith. One of the women, he's like, oh, we got to do magic, which means we got to get naked and stuff. Like, like he's kind of using them for not just magical stuff, but he's like trying to make himself mysterious, so they want to get naked and have sex with him and stuff. And I felt like this, you get to see a little bit more of that, like an older version of John. Like he's not 19 or 17 or whatever he's supposed to be in that early Astra story, but in this, he's like in his 20s, and he's like with his friend, and the way that they talk, you can see John's like not as crass as his friend, but they're both like down. They're both trying to get around, and they'll say whatever they need to say to get laid. And yeah, I don't know. I felt John kind of, there was a little bit revealed in his character in this story, so I thought it was pretty important actually to get to know what John was like early on. Did you feel the same way?
Oh yeah, I thought it's always great to have like a window into his background, especially every time you feel like, oh yeah, I just learned a new piece about him. Like I feel like he's becoming even more of a well-rounded character, or something surprising from his past that you didn't know. And this was kind of not so much like an important, like a need to know bit of his life, but it still gave us just a little bit more into who he was, and it kind of shows his growth because he's not, like you said, the young guy who's all cocky, but he still kind of uses magic as a line, like
Yeah.
it's part of his arsenal, as far as like, oh, what can I rely on to get laid? Oh yeah, magic. Yeah, that works. So I still think it's funny.
Nowadays it's more about the mystery of him, not so much like, oh, I'm using magic. But like,
Right, right.
yeah, he's got a reputation now since then, and people think he's cool. But I this story was creepy as fuck to me. Like the scene, I think I even put the page in, but it's like when his friend is having sex with the demon, but he doesn't know it's a demon, and then it says like, and she squeezed, and then like you just see this panel of her
Yeah.
face like giving a weird smile, and then his face is like, what? Like, and it's like, oh my god, like she squeezed off his dick. Like that's what? Like, it's a pretty fucked up story to be in, like just a hey everybody, you ever want to read John? Like, here's some Hellblazer you might that might intrigue you. Which I think is funny. It's like this is the honey they chose to throw out as like what Constantine is like, for people who haven't read him before.
Well, it's like they did sort of like the best bits of it, which is, hey, there's sex, hey, there's violence, hey, there's some weird shit that happens. So it kind of hits all the things you need to know about, following Constantine, which is weird shit, magic, sex, and also violence, and sometimes all of those things in literally one scene.
Yeah, and I mean this is like a really masterful way of telling the story, because he only had like 8 pages, I think, maybe 12 max, but like he got a lot of good story in there, and still was able to tie it into the run he was writing now.
It was quick, but also, yeah, hit all the points of like beginning, middle, end, but still leaving you like wondering, like, oh, like what happened next? I mean, we know what happened next, as far as like when you jump back into the regular story, he's still homeless, he's still, struggling with stuff. But the fact they left it open ended, as far as like you didn't really know what happened afterwards in that part of the story. Like, what did the demon want? Like, what was the actual bargain on her side? you know, they kind of leave that up in the air. So it's intriguing enough that people be like, oh, what else? Just constant, like, this was just a story from him. Like, what other stories does he have? Which I really liked. Later on, when we get to the last uh, issue with Chaz, like the story that he tells is also weird, and you know has a lot of weirdness, a lot of magic, a lot of violence, a lot of crazy stuff, and so that also is like a great issue like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was fun, and I had never read that before I did it for the podcast, because it wasn't collected in any of the collections I remember reading, at least, because I had the older ones, so they didn't, like, now I think if you buy the collection they put in these little one shots and stuff, like in the run.
Do they put in just his sliver or the whole thing?
I think just his sliver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
yeah, but Um, I don't think they used to do that because I don't remember that story ever from reading it previous. So, but then I had to immediately go find that issue. I was like, ah, man, I thought I had a full run of Hellblazer, and I'm missing a very. It's not like you said. It's not like essential, but it's like, oh, it's in continuity story for this section. I gotta have it. So, um, in fact, I gotta have two because there's a Swamp Thing story, and that's also in continuity. So I gotta put that in my Swamp Thing run. I just thought of that. I gotta
So did
have.
you get two?
No, I just thought I gotta buy another one now. But yeah, so I liked that a
The
lot.
quest is never ending.
Yes, it never ends. I always find new things I don't have. But yeah, so then we get into an issue that I found interesting, but not enough to to actually read the whole thing to you all.
Skim, just a little light summary for us.
Yeah, this is maybe my. No one said anything. No one's actually commented, but I assume this is my most controversial episode decision because because I just didn't do most of issue 70 because it's all about Kit and her family and like the politics of Ireland at the time. And actually, it's not even about the politics of Ireland. It's more about her family. And there's like literally nothing about John except one section where she gets drunk with her, or not, but she's drinking with her sister, and then she cries about John, and that's it. So I read that section where she's drinking and cries about John, and then left it at that. Did you have any thoughts on that? Would you have preferred me to read the whole thing?
I am split actually because the completionist in me wants to know every little tiny detail about everything, like every offshoot, every issue that doesn't even have anything to do with John. Every like, oh, you remember like you're like, oh, I happened to find this annual that is actually, has nothing to do with the current story, but it's still a good story. Yeah. So the completionist me is like, I need all those because I want the full package that is Hellblazer and everything attached to it. The realist in me is like, you know what? If it's not a part of the main story, you can gloss over it. You gave us the highlights, you gave us the main stuff, and it leaves it intriguing enough that if we care enough, if I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to find out what Kit was doing over there and a little more of her family drama, I can find it and pick it up myself and read it. So I I think that part of me wins in this scenario, this situation, and where my completionist side, as annoyed as it is like overruled by the fact that I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Let's move on. Let's get back to John. It's cool. We got a summary. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt. Like I read it, I'm like, it's fine. Like it's about Kit and her family, and that's cool. But nothing. There's nothing about John in it really, except this one little part. And I just couldn't imagine doing like a 30-minute podcast where I read all the dialogue and everything and nothing. It's inconsequential to the overall story that we've been reading. So that's why I made the call. Now I will say, for anybody who cares and they want to read this issue, Hellblazer, there's no like expensive issues of Hellblazer except like issue 1 and the Neil Gaiman issue, which I think is like issue 27. Other than that, they're all really easy to find, and for like 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever. So you can find these for really cheap at like half price books or anywhere they have used comics where, in back issues or whatever, they're really easy to find. And this run was heavily bought, so there's a lots of issues of this run. So it should be the easiest one to find, like, or the easiest section to find of the 300 issue of Hellblazer. So I will say that was also part of my decision. Like if it was part of a rare section or an expensive section, I would have been like, I'll read it because people won't be able to get it, But also you can get it in the trade. The trades have it in there. So if you don't want to find the issue,
Which is probably what I'm going to do some days. I love the trades, so I will probably just get the trades, and that'll be a lovely little surprise to open the book. Be like, oh yeah, that little section about Kit. Well, let's see what Kit's been up to. But no offense to Kit, I would like to get back to John.
yeah. Well, and there's a whole like later on, I think maybe like 2 years after this Ennis finished his run on Hellblazer. He came back with Steve Dillon and did a single shot issue that's just about Kit and Ireland. And it's called Heartland, which is the name of this issue as well. But this is like a 40-page one shot, and it goes into way more depth about like the politics side of Ireland and the Troubles and what was going on with, you know, the military, the British military in, I think it's Belfast. And so, yeah, there's like, I think that's even included in the trades. So you'd even get that one.
Awesome. Would you say that then that is sort of like a sequel to this original?
Yeah, I think it's a
Heartland?
sequel, or it's,
Oh,
I think it's a direct sequel because, actually, it might even be a prequel.
I was wondering if it was like a rewrite, like he had written something and he wanted to expand on it, so he was like, "I'm going to write like the director's cut version of this." So maybe it is sort of like a prequel, sequel, like rewrite.
I think, if I remember correctly, it's a prequel because it's before she met John. Because there's like, I
Oh,
think it's before. Maybe I'm wrong. I read it and I didn't. It was like almost a year ago now. So,
mm,
I forget. It's either a prequel or it's not. That's that's what I can give you on that.
it's
So
something.
it's something
And you know
exactly.
what? You're making it way more mysterious by not really being able to tell us what it's about. So there you go, everybody. Pick up that issue or get a trade that has it in it, and we'll find out what it's all about.
It just so happened that as I was looking through Half Price Books one day, someone had sold their entire like Vertigo collection or something, and I'm looking and I see this thing called Heartland. It's got Kid on the front, and it's by Steve Dillon and Garth Ennis, and I'm like, well, this has to be Hellblazer related, but I've never heard of it, and I just bought it like almost the same week that I read this issue for the podcast. It was funny how it happened. Like I never would have even
Wow,
known what it was, except I just read the issue and I'm like, what are the chances of that? So
that's serendipitous right there.
yeah, I didn't sell my soul to the devil for that, but
I would hope you didn't, because that would
yeah,
be kind of sad on your side.
yeah, yes, it would. There's better things for that, I'm holding out. Um, but
Action
yeah,
Comics number one.
exactly. So then we get issue 71, which is kind of the return of John, or at least how he returns to his normal self. Um, this one is interesting because it's like drunk John passes out in some grass that just happens to have a World War II pilot's skeleton in it, and he like feels the echoes of that pilot's life and decides from that life story, or more like death story, that he needs to ship up and or shape up and get going with his life, stop being mopey, and move on. So what
Shape up and ship out.
exactly? What'd you think of this story? Did you think it was like a good reason for him to like snap out of his malaise, or did you think it should have been more?
I feel like it works. It's almost like a It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing of like, oh, I don't want to live anymore. Like, oh, this is so. And then except instead of finding out what his life would have been like, it was like finding out about this pilot's life, and this pilot who's just like, I am gonna breath, and everything that he goes through, and like dying, and him just being like, I refuse to die until I'm dead, sort of feeling, and
Yeah,
then John just being like, huh, well, that's it'd be like if the angel showed what's his name from the movie. I only ever saw it once. I don't care for it. But if you'd shown him like someone else's life who, rather than going through like the basics and like, oh, all these bad things happen, it's like, oh well, yeah, well, this guy's been through some shit. Stop
yeah,
complaining, like
yeah, for real. I guess, yeah, I didn't think of it like that, but it is a similar like to It's a Wonderful Life story, where instead of, or even like a Christmas Carol, where it's like,
yeah.
you get to see, instead of seeing your life, you see like the how much vigor you could have for life, from someone else's perspective, and it kind of changes his outward look on things. So yeah, I guess it does work. To me, the most unbelievable thing with that is that there would be a crashed World War II plane that no one found, like next to the river, I guess, like in the middle of London.
And a skeleton
And a
that's just
skeleton, yeah, like no one's
not
noticed this
completely
for
overgrown. It's
40
just
years or
laying
50
out
years.
there as if it just died, or as if he just died and rotted there and no one noticed
Yeah.
or thought to preserve the site, or pick up these bones and find out who they belong to, and or bury them or whatever. Like, yeah, you gotta suspend a little bit of
It is
disbelief
comics.
in that particular section, like with all the magic and stuff. I don't know, the World War II plane just kind of being there, so it's a little a little
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's comics, and that's you got to move the story along somehow. So like, let's just get this thing going. So I love the end of this though, where he like once he decides, yeah, I'm gonna live, I'm gonna get back to my old self. He just like goes up to a rich guy and is like, hey, give me your wallet, and the guy's like, okay, there's a bunch of money in there, have fun, because he like he Jedi mind tricks him, um, which
You
yeah,
made a Star Wars reference.
I did.
John would be so sad to have missed that.
Well, it is Star Wars week or month for us, so we read Star Wars this month for the
That's
podcast,
right.
the main podcast. So
Still in
um,
your brain, isn't it?
it is. That's what it is. That's the reason why. Surprisingly, I did not hate them all. And if anyone else wants to hear our main podcast, you can go to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books on any podcast platform and check those out. That's my other one where I break down with a friend a bunch of kind of random collections that we go through. So, but anyway,
Yes. So John uses the Force to get this guy to give him his wallet. Goes and gets a hotel room, cleans himself up. Did he steal his clothes too? I forget.
no, he just bought new clothes with the money.
Oh, there you go. That would have been funny though, because he probably could have been like, "Hey, give me," pulled like a Terminator thing. I need your shirt and your pants and your boots.
That's true, but the guy that he steals the wallet from is pretty portly, so I don't think it would have fit John.
Would have been funny though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, can you imagine John after like 4 months of not showering and or caring about appearance or anything, and then walking into a suit store and being like, "Here's some money. Give me, give me a suit and a trench coat."
And I want to be fitted for it. Fit me
Yeah,
for this
fitted,
suit.
right? Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's funny.
Get
Um,
way up in there, and then check make sure it all fits
yeah,
nice and
get the
snug.
inseam. I need you to make sure you get
Oh no.
that. Yeah, and then we get like the second big story arc in this, which like the first one was King of the Vampires one, and then this is like the actual like kind of large story arc because it's 6 issues or five issues. I don't know. Let's see. It's five. It's 4 issues actually. Okay, it seemed longer than it was, but not in like a bad way. It's just like this one is John going to America now that he's kind of cleaned himself up. He's actually kind of going on vacation to clear his head, So he's going to New York City, and this is interesting because it's like we're running back in to Papa Midnight. This is the second time we've seen him since he was introduced in issues 1 and 2. What did you think of that? Like, well, first off, what did you think of this story arc as a whole? Like, did you think it worked well? And then what did you think of Papa Midnight's return?
I thought it was so funny that the first thing John does when he decides to, pick himself up and like, I'm gonna, I'm tired of this hobo shit. I'm gonna, get back into the world, and immediately leaves London and goes to the States
Mm-hmm.
to clear his head. I thought that was just such a funny decision. Like, of all the places, he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go back here because, and it turns out he hadn't been there in like 10 years since the first issue, right? Because that's
Has it? I don't. Had it been 10 years?
wasn't that what the bartender said? Because even, or when John was like, "Wait, I've been here 10 years. You remember me?"
Yeah, I think he'd been to New York previously, just not from the beginning of this arc, but I think when he sees that guy, it had been 10 years since he saw that guy.
Yeah, because I don't know, the way they wrote it made it seem like it'd been 10 years since the whole incident with his friend and the bug demon and Papa Midnight. So,
No, I think it was 10 years since he went to that specific bar and saw that guy.
oh, okay, because I was like, it hasn't been that long in in the book or in the series.
So he was 35 when the book started. He just had his 40th. So it's been 5, maybe 6 years, or he's in his 6th year. So
Okay. Yeah, because I knew a lot of time had passed, but I didn't think it had been that long. All right, so maybe the last time he was in New York, he didn't stop by that particular bar.
which makes sense. He had a lot going on in that arc.
It was quite busy. His schedule was a bit full.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as Papa Midnight coming back, I mean, I still see his character from the movie, with
Mhm.
Jimon Hansu. So I like him. I like that portrayal of his character where he didn't seem so much like, I don't know, vindictive. I mean, I guess he kind of was, when John first shows up and like does that weird like burning through with his fingers to his shirt, which was such a cool power move. But so I kind of liked him as that portrayal. That's how I saw him. But he does seem like a bit more of like an asshole in the comics, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
more of an evil guy too. Like in the movie,
yeah,
he's got more of like I'm maybe on the dark side of
neutral.
things, but I'm like evil neutral, like or chaotic neutral or something. Whereas in this, it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, like he murdered his sister to get his powers, and that's fucked up.
So pushing the movie aside and looking at him just through the lens of his comic book character, I was like, oh, of course he would be the one to find a way to like get back at John for, you know, slights or just like he's in a moment of weakness where he's happy. I shall fuck with
Hmm.
him.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about this arc, we get to see like, I mean, he really builds Papa Midnight up in this because before we just kind of know he's a big player in like certain circles and stuff, and he's powerful magic enough, or he's magically powerful enough that John will go to him for help sometimes, at least in the first 2 issues of Hellblazer. Um, and so that kind of makes you think he must be something, like he must be pretty strong or whatever. But in this, like we learn his origin, we learn how he gets his powers, we learn exactly something like what he can do, which is send John witch walking through like a hell dimension, and without it, because John wasn't like 100% thinking he needed to be like on guard. This works, and to catch John, obviously John is coming back from his downward spiral, but to catch him unawares like that is pretty rare. And I think even if he went there and wasn't expecting it, but he hadn't gone through everything he'd just gone through, I think he would have figured it out sooner or whatever. Like he would have caught on immediately or something. What do you think about that?
Did he spike his drink? Was that what it was?
No, I don't. What he did at the bar, he did like a spell, like he astral projected and did a spell, um, and that's what sent him. What? I don't remember actually. I'm trying to
Because
think.
it made it seem like he took a drink. He had sort of like a reaction to it, like a like oh well, I guess it's just maybe it's the end of the tap or something, bottom of the barrel. But I thought maybe he got Xerxes to put something in his drink, or it seemed a little unclear exactly how he got into John's head. But like the fact that he was able to, besides the fact that I couldn't figure out like exactly how he managed to get into John's head and just like warp him to this alternate hell dimension, while still being present, like his physical presence is still there. It's just his brain's or his mind's gone, to the land of the lost. And um, I did find that intriguing, both that he was able to do it and that John didn't figure it out till it was too late.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually looking through the comic now while we're talking, just to verify what the hell happened. Um, I don't think he actually spikes his drink. I think he just like does a spell, and he like astral projects into the building when he does the spell, and that's all part of the thing. But he doesn't actually put anything in John's drink specifically.
Oh, okay.
But it does kind of feel like that, right? Like he takes a drink
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden everything goes wonky. And he's like, "What?"
Yeah, it seemed like the timing of it meant something, but I guess it was more just like, oh, he just got like the heebie-jeebies at that moment because
Yeah.
that's right when the spell concluded or
Yeah, I
finished.
think that's what it was.
Okay.
Um,
Still, I mean, the fact that he was able to, literally jump to where John was and John didn't sense anything was, like, you could definitely tell he's not in peak performance right now. I mean, he did just go through a whole hellish time being homeless and being not at the top of his game. So even if it wasn't necessarily that he's happy and content, I think it was like partially happy and content to not be homeless anymore, and just sort of like refreshing, recentering himself. But it was also he's been off his game for several months and he wasn't prepared to be on guard. He wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm back in New York. Do I have enemies here? Should I be on the lookout? I think it was a lot of maybe just, exhaustion, trying to clear his head, trying to get into a better place. And and yeah, somebody took advantage of that. The fact that he wasn't at the top of his game.
yeah. Yeah, and I like Papa Midnight as a villain. Do you think they should have used him more in the series, before this?
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen him more throughout. It does kind of seem weird that we haven't seen him since the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, since issues 1 and 2.
Like there was no other instance. I thought he would have been a much bigger player, especially, when well, I mean, I guess if he's all the way in the States and John's all the way in London.
But they could like name drop him, Like they
Yeah.
could be like, "Oh, this is happening and Midnight's got to be involved somehow."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely would have liked to have seen him used more. It kind of seemed like he and the King of the Vampires, while the King of the Vampires had a much shorter, like he was introduced and then only a few issues later he's dead. It feels like almost they're on the same level of here's this really awesome character and then nothing and then oh they show up and then oh they're dead. So underutilized for sure. I would have loved to have seen more. Maybe there's a spinoff.
There is a spin-off.
Oh, there
There's
you
a
go.
I think it came out in like 2012. I haven't read it, but there's a like a 6-issue miniseries called Papa Midnight. Um and I think it's like him when he's
Awesome.
younger. Although I don't know if it's like how correct it is as far as the origin that we read here, because in this you find out, oh, he just got super into voodoo from his, I think, uncle or dad or something, and then he kills his sister as part of the voodoo ritual to get his magics, all powerful. And then the skull that he talks to that was set up in the first issue of Hellblazer is actually the skull of his sister, which is revealed here. So I don't even think Jamie Delano meant for that to be. This is like that whole background story is all just Garth Ennis coming up with a background for Papa Midnight, for these issues.
Which is totally awesome. I love that it could be just like, oh yeah, he just happened to pick a skull, and Garth Ennis be like, hey, it would be cool.
Yeah, like what if it was his sister's head, and what if she's the magic wielder and he's just kind of using it? Um, I
Yeah,
kind
that's
of I kind of
cool.
like that. Like the soul is powering his magic, and so once her soul gets free from his hell dimension, it like he loses all of his power, and she fucking kills him, which is fun. I did like that. I did like how it ends. Like if he's this much of an asshole, and especially what you see happens to John, like while he's in the hell dimension, his body is
Oh yeah.
just in like a some weird like prison cell or whatever, like a jail cell, and he's almost raped, and there's like there's all this like
Almost
he's
set
almost
on
burned
fire.
alive. Yeah, yeah, just horrible stuff is happening to him. While like to his body while his mind is in this hell dimension. So um I gotta ask because it comes up and it was kind of a hard thing for me to do. What'd you think of my Kennedy accent? Because John F. Kennedy makes an appearance in this hell dimension.
I've only ever heard him in like short voice clips, from his speeches and stuff. But I thought you did a pretty good job of like capturing, not like doing an over exaggerated version, but doing just enough that it doesn't sound like you. It sounds like you are trying to be a different person, and that person happens to sound quite a bit like Kennedy. So I thought you did a pretty darn good job.
It was pretty hard because I kept wanting to switch into Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean that's just you could have gone overboard and gone like way more to Quimby for sure. But I
Yeah.
think you walked a very like thin line of like full on Kennedy or full on Quimby, and just kind of did sort of a nice in between of it sounds just enough like him without sounding like a parody.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had to like go listen to some speeches of his because what I know from him is actually mostly Quimby talking. So like I kept having to be like, no, that's Quimby, not actual JFK. And so like I found some speeches on YouTube where he was talking. I'm like, oh, he's got way less of an exaggerated accent than I thought he did because in my mind it's just Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons. So so yeah, it was tough, but it was fun. I was like, okay, I get to practice this thing, I guess, for 4 issues. Thanks, Garth Ennis. Um, but yeah, I was
And
like,
long speeches too, because he doesn't ever answer with just like
no,
a quick, yes or no. He's got to go into a whole spiel. So the fact that he had to both write that and then you had to read it
yeah,
it was a lot, but it
I
was still
liked it.
fun. It was fun to hear a whole new character, and hopefully he doesn't come back
No, I don't think he will,
just for
but
your sake.
I do enjoy that like he did always say everything like a president would say everything. Like he never answers just straightforward. He's got to be like, well, my cabinet and I like, like we've concluded that the best possible situation. Like yeah, it was just like that was the other part of it is you had to get the cadence down, like the presidential speaking. So I was like, this is close. As much as I practiced it, I didn't spend hours. I was just like, okay, this is kind of how he talks. This is his cadence, and I just went with that. Um, but yeah, I thought that was fun for his character though. That he just always talked in that presidential style.
It was
Um,
fun. It was a great character, and short lived, but still made a big impact for sure.
yeah. One thing I thought was funny that I didn't point out, but one of my patrons pointed out was that um, there's a magazine called NME. Oh wait, no, this is later on. Sorry, I was thinking of when he was riding on the plane when he sends Nigel the like he signs him up for all the Christian stuff when he's heading to New York on the plane. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know if you remember that part.
Oh yeah,
From
it's like the old school email lists, except it's an actual physical list where
yeah,
you just get
but I know
spam
later
mail.
on Nigel's like these guys keep sending me all this mail, and like in the next arc, and so I was like, oh, this is
Oh, that's
fantastic.
great.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite jokes in this whole series. Which is actually like it was hard to explain because I got to give the context for who Nigel is and what they're talking about with this Christian organization and all this stuff. So um, I was like, hopefully this gets through. But I thought that was pretty funny when I first read it. Um, and then we get 2 issues after that. That's kind of like the fallout of him coming back from this whole witch walking thing and battling Papa Midnight. Um, he comes back to the UK, but his plane gets delayed in Ireland, so he has to hang out there for a while. And in issue 76, he gets to, I guess, hang out with his friend Brendan. And I guess it is the Brendan's ghost, because Brendan died in issue 42. So I never quite fully knew if this was actually the ghost of him or if it was in John's head, and he's talking to to put his own conscience at ease, because he did date Kit, who was Brennan's girlfriend when a couple of years ago. So like I don't know, what'd you think about this overall? I assume you thought he was a ghost like for real, but it wasn't 100%, I don't think, in the issue.
I totally bought into the idea that he was a ghost, or a spirit that got like a 1 day pass to come back to Earth because John happened to be in his old haunting grounds. And I really liked the idea. I love that it was just sort of a short, sweet story about like two friends reconnecting, and kind of John getting to have some catharsis of like things that he's always wondered. And wondering how Brandon's doing, is everything okay with him? Like, did he make it to heaven? He always assumed and hoped. And then also being okay with him dating Kit. So yeah, you could totally read it as just his own sort of self assurance of like, this is what I imagine our conversation would be like. But at the same time, he seems to become like corporeal in that they're getting drinks for both of them. They're both drinking them. So that to me leaned more into like he came back as like a ghosty spirity thing, but then also gave himself sort of like a, an actual flesh body enough that they could drink together and be seen walking together. So because there were no like hints of like John just talking to himself from like, like a faraway panel of someone walking by and noticing he's just walking by himself. There was no hint of that, I think. At least not the way you described it.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
there wasn't.
yeah, I would definitely lean into more of the idea of like ghost spirit coming back to Earth for like this one night of like debauchery, one more time, one pub crawl for good old days, and yeah, just having a good chat with someone. Which I mean, given John's powers, it's not too far fetched to think that he could have pulled Brendan down by his mere presence, being back in our being back there again. So
Yeah, that's true. I just thought it would be like an interesting take if it wasn't like I think he was there too, but I could see like, oh, someone reading it that he wasn't there. Maybe John was just drinking double the whole night or whatever.
no, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the other thing that's in the background of this art or this issue is it's weird because like we learn about Papa Midnight's henchman, and this like he alludes to this story where he shot John's friend, and that's why he was worried John would see him in New York and recognize him, but he didn't. And from like so that whole Damnation's Flame story arc kind of teased this story in issue 76, where we learn exactly what happened that night, that some gun deal went bad between Zerky and a bunch of John's friends. So it's kind of interesting that they did that after the fact, like I guess it was like, yeah, we're not going to put it in the main Damnation's Flame story arc, but we'll put it in the issue directly following it because now you know the context for all of it. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting way to do that.
Yeah, it is kind of weird they didn't make you wait longer because, I mean, even when they were, talking about Newcastle and we had to wait, 12 issues before we found out what that was all about. But this was literally like, oh, here's this guy you've never heard of with this situation that we, never talked about. Oh, but we're going to talk about it like right after these messages.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what, four issues, so from when they introduce it. So yeah, like pretty quickly gets a payoff. I just didn't think it would happen. Like it didn't seem like it needed to be told, but I guess maybe they wanted it, like since they alluded to it so hard in the Damnation's Flame. So
yeah, and it's definitely worth hearing about. It was certainly a messed up situation, especially for John's friend. Like, geez.
yeah, for sure.
And I guess it gives us a little more context to like, Brendan's character, the fact that he's the one who chooses to, put their friend out of his misery, whereas, John was just kind of like, oh, I can't look, shows you, I guess, who they were at that time when that situation happened. Because I think, again, it's another past situation like that Vertigo one shot where you don't really know exactly when it happened, just that it's kind of like, I'm assuming after like the Newcastle thing, but obviously before where we are now. So just another little snippet into his life and, Brendan's life when they both got into this terrible situation, but came out of it. At least they were unscathed.
Yeah. Obviously their friend died, or got his
Yeah.
blown off or whatever it was. But yeah, so yeah, I like that issue. And then we get the last issue, which kind of rounds out this whole thing. We know what happened to Kit. John has bounced back finally, and now he's ready to make amends with Chaz. And we find out, like in issue 77, we get the backstory on. It's not the first time they met, but it's the first time Chaz saw anything supernatural with John, I guess, or like he saw like really what John does or what John's capable of. And so like I thought this was like a really interesting issue. I think there's even the art's the only thing that kind of is different because it's not Steve Dillon, and I'm not sure why, but every now and then the artists will need to catch up, month or whatever, so they'll fill in, and this guy I think he made Chaz drive a American style yellow taxi, which I thought was interesting. I was like, oh, I guess this guy
That's so
doesn't know.
funny.
Yeah. I remember reading that and being like, what is going on? Like, why is he in America? No? Okay, then why does he
I
have
guess they
yellow-
don't have Google.
Not back
They
then,
didn't,
no.
but yeah, they didn't have Google, so I guess it would have just he would have had to ask, or if he just didn't know, he would have had to ask. And but I guess he assumed that they must have the same sort of taxis in England as they do here, so I'm just gonna draw them in a regular taxi. But it's just funny that it got through all those phases of like someone obviously saw it finished. I was like, "Yep, stamp of approval. This totally works."
Yeah, that's really on the editor, I guess. But it could have been that this was a fill-in quickly. Like, oh shit, we have like Steve's not going to get it done. We need someone to fill this in. It's out in 2 weeks. Let's rush it to this guy. He does the work. He doesn't think about taxi. He just reads taxi and draws a taxi as he knows it. Then like maybe someone caught it, maybe someone didn't. If someone caught it, they were probably like, well, fuck it, we don't have time to send it back to him to redraw, because you got to remember these are like you're posting the actual pages to the DC offices or whatever, like
Yeah, like they had to actually be sent physically and then put together and then or copied however many times for the run and then put together. And yeah, no, so I could totally see how like a slip up like that, while easier to correct nowadays, would probably be not worth the trouble, and just like, oh, most people won't even notice that.
yeah, most people won't notice that, except British readers will definitely notice it. But what are you gonna do? Stuff happens, So I just thought that was like notable in this issue. And then I thought the story of like the little supernatural story was pretty creepy. Like there's this guy holding the spirit of a little girl under the stairs, and he was like a child molester, murderer guy. It was very creepy.
So messed up.
Yeah. But
right up John's alley.
Exactly. And I thought that it was like, I guess it would be a good one for Chaz to see, right? Because like John is obviously like the hero. He saves the soul of a girl. And so Chaz is like, oh shit, like my friend's like a superhero basically. So it makes sense why he's like so with John until he isn't. But then it also makes sense at the end of this issue, they like make up basically. And so that's like the rounding off of, we saw at the very end of the last Hell Talk, John loses everything. He loses Chaz, he loses Kit. Then this one, we see what's going on with Kit, and Chaz and John get back together as friends. So yeah. Do you think Chaz should have forgiven him?
I think that, I mean, he didn't even know about his situation either. It's not like he was like, oh, where's John these days? Coming across him as like a homeless dude. So he probably had no idea like what John's been through at this point. But it has been, what do you say? It was like 4 months, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 4 months.
I'd say that, considering how long they've been friends, and the fact that he picked a story to tell where it shows John as like a hero, both as like sacrificing himself to the point where everyone thinks he's dead, and then him just coming back nonchalantly, be like, "Hey, you guys holding this party without me, huh?" And so, like, he could have picked a story that showed John in a worse light, but he picked one that obviously shows he misses his friend and still thinks highly of him. So yeah, I think it felt like a really good way to show that he was ready and willing to forgive John, especially since he actually apologizes. He actually does sort of say, "Hey, yeah, I was in the wrong, and I'm sorry." So I thought it was nice. It was sweet. It was. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more um, of them drinking, and because obviously the most of it was spent with just Chaz and his friends shooting the shit, with John just sort of like you know hanging around in the background. You didn't know that until, like you said, you revealed it at the end that it was actually him just like skulking around in the background the whole time. But yeah, it's a nice, sweet way to end sort of like that journey of we started out with them, Chaz literally giving him a swirly and like, punching in the face and being like, fuck you. Like, don't ever want to talk to you again. And then just being like, yeah, we're good. It's okay.
Yeah, I thought, I don't know about you, but if someone I thought had died that was my friend, I don't know what the emotions I would feel, especially if it was like John Constantine, like this guy that has, in quotation marks, died, or at least said he was going to die and then didn't.
A few times.
Yeah, a few times. I feel like I'd go to the funeral very skeptical, and then, as it continues, be like, oh, maybe this is real, And then at the end, when he's like, oh, that was sweet, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, I would be more mad than happy.
But mad because at least, he was okay this whole time. But you could have told us sooner.
Yeah, there was ample opportunity to just go up to him at the bar and be like, hey, Chaz, what's up?
I think he also didn't want to interrupt the time Chaz was having with his friends, because then he could tell that they were obviously maybe not Constantine groupies, but definitely interested in his life. And last thing he would want to do is pull any, spotlight away from Chaz, or in any way like want to talk to some people who just want to hear about like, oh, you do magic, huh? It's so cool. Tell some magic stuff. So
yeah.
I like that he waited at least long enough until they all left and it was just him and Chaz like, hey, so how you doing?
Yeah, you did go about it the right way, I guess. So okay. So with that, we end this section of this chunk, right? And now we are in the next Hell Talk will cover the last story arc of the Garth Ennis run. And we'll go from, I think, issue 78 to 84. Yeah, 84.
Oh, the end of another era.
Exactly. The end of Garth Ennis and a one-shot by Jamie Delano to end cap it.
Oh. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so that'll be fun to cover, and very like I don't know about you, but like whenever I finish a TV show or like a series of comics that's like a whole run by one author, I just feel like I lost a best friend or something. Like I
you really
so
get into
time.
it.
Yeah, and so what do you think? I mean, we haven't read the last arc, obviously, but what do you think overall of this Ennis run? Like, are there any thoughts on the journey so far?
I think it's been a really great ride. It's covered a lot of ground. It's, the stories have been very different. Although there have been, some similar themes of like big baddie bites it, But I mean, overall, he brought in a lot of like really cool new characters, some great bad guys. I mean, some really weird stuff that you just would not even expect. The royal story still.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff, dude. That is so apropos, that royal blood story arc. Because did you see King Charles's painting that came out this week?
Yes.
Someone posted that with the Hellblazer logo on top, because it looks exactly like a cover from that.
Oh my gosh, I did not see. I have to look for that now because that sounds perfect. I did get some vibes though. When I saw it, I was like, this is creepy. why is this so creepy? Maybe that's why I was thinking of the royal blood. I just didn't put it together in my head, but that totally makes sense. Oh man, I gotta find that picture.
Yeah, I was like, is all that red like the blood of the people that you murdered throughout the centuries?
Yeah. Oh man, that's so appropriate.
I thought it was a variant cover. The way that they had posted it, I was like, wait, is this like a variant cover? Because that's a pretty sick variant cover. And then it was like, no, it's
a real painting
of Charles.
It's hanging in the palace right now.
Yeah, I was like, that is fucking ridiculous and awesome.
Yeah, I saw some versions of like people putting it in to Ghostbusters as like a replacement for Vigo's painting.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense too.
I thought that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, that's totally fine. But I love that storyline. I really love everywhere he's gone with this. I mean, even dragging John all the way down to being like homeless and living on the streets was a direction you would never expect. So
Right.
he's
Yeah.
kept me on my toes.
That I love this series because Garth Ennis does a good job, like you said, of keeping you on your toes. You never just when you think you know how it's going to go, he switches it up on you. It's not perfect by any means. Like there are things that I think he could have done better or change, a bit. But overall, I think this is a very strong arc. There's one person on YouTube whenever I talk about this arc or this whole run of Garth Ennis that he's like, it's one of my least favorites, and I'm like, I don't understand how that's possible because it is so like as an arc go like as a full run goes. Um, I feel like it's pretty strong in the character, but this person really likes Jamie Delano, so I get that.
Mm,
He's like really loves that run, so it is different from that. So I understand
yeah,
a
it's
bit,
true.
but yeah. So I'm glad I'm excited. We're finally at the end. This last arc is pretty epic because it's the coming to a head of the build up of the battle between John and the first of the fallen. So
Oh yeah, kind of forgot about that guy a little bit. This like he, I mean, aside from that little cameo he had in the hell dimension, I
as
kind of
Abraham
forgot that
Lincoln, we didn't
there's
even talk about that, but
yeah, totally forgot to mention that. My favorite part was Kennedy being like, and my guy here, he's right. Where'd he go? And then John just like peaced out.
I thought that was hilarious. I thought they were gonna do something where like he attacks him there, but he didn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I think because he's like building up this plan in the background, he didn't want to. I think he hadn't done his plan yet, so he knew he couldn't beat John even in that hell dimension.
Yeah, he didn't want to even show his hand either. Didn't even want to like, mess with him a little bit aside from just be like, "Boo, I'm still here. Still thinking about you, man. Gonna get you." And John just be like, "Oh shit." Like, yeah, peace out."
Yeah, yeah,
Which I think kind of puts the first sort of like a notch up because obviously John wasn't expecting to see him there. And they're both supposed to be like, "Oh, I'm planning." He's like, "I'm ready, no matter what you throw at me." Whereas the first is like, "I'm planning. I'm going to get you." So that sort of surprise, I think, put John almost like in the headspace of like, "Oh, right, I gotta still prepare about for that stuff." Whereas the first was like, I'm here and I'm thinking about you and I'm going to get you. So I think he got kind of the upper hand in that interaction, which hopefully John will still come back stronger and ready. I hope.
yeah. Well, we'll find out in the next Hell Talk what we thought of that. So,
Yeah,
um,
excited.
yeah. So with that, was there anything else I missed that you wanted to talk about?
Well, actually, I just wanted to know what is your favorite cover from this arc?
All right, I got two favorite covers.
Okay.
I really like the number 76, which is the one with him and Ghost Brendan walking under the moon. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that was a good cover, and then I love the issue 75, the first of the fallen Uncle Sam poster.
Uh, that one's so creepy.
It is so creepy, and it sticks with me. It is like one of the first covers I think of when I think of the Garth Ennis Hellblazer run.
So creepy.
So old, his gums and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So nasty.
Yeah, but those are two really good ones. Did you have a favorite?
I liked the Statue of Liberty, but with like the skull face and
Mm.
like the bone arm. I thought that was a really great way to show, showcase, hey, this is where we are, but there's a twist to it. So those are always like my favorite covers where it's like something that you think is familiar, but there's like a, creepiness to it or like a twist to it. And it's simple, but so striking. Like a poster of that would be so cool because people be like, what is that supposed to be? I'm like, well, let me tell you about this time John went to a hell dimension in New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I like that one.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
No, I think we're good for now. I think we covered everything. Uh, that we want to talk about. Although, I am kind of curious if because the king of the vampire died, if his minions will ever show up again, or is that just, well, I mean, obviously not the one guy who was just like, I can't live without him, and, poof. But the other one was still alive. So it kind of makes me think there's, potential for use of character to maybe claim queen of the vampires, or, possibility of seeing other vampires again someday, maybe.
There's got to
Think
be
that would be
other
kind of cool.
vampire stories in Hellblazer, right?
Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. I like that, that whole idea of like getting rid of the king of the vampires and sort of leaving then a hole for someone else to take his place. So, yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Cool. Well, with that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed this. And like we said, next time we're going to be reading issues 78 through 84. So be on the lookout for that episode after issue 84. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next one.
See you later.
Bye.